Welcome to Unruly 3, father of 3 unruly kids.
I'm not really.
So this is my current workbench. It's a Harbor Freight workbench I got for $50 off of Craigslist. I heavily modified it. I put this toolbox in it. This toolbox literally had, pulled out of the scrap pile, had scrap painted on the side. Was missing some drawers, and I kind of built these drawers into it so it would sit in here, and I made these storage things along the side, and it was doing a really good job for me. And I think that, why do you need a new workbench? Like, I think that I think I watch too many YouTube videos and I see all these other amazing workbenches and I think I want a new one. So, yeah, so you see like the wood isn't very good on this one. When I drilled out the holes, they got a lot of tear out on them because the holes weren't big enough for normal dogs. This vise racks really bad when you try to use it. And I I added this tool tray in the back where it has a hole you can put the garbage underneath it, just kind of brush things down, but really it just collects a lot of garbage. So there are a lot of things I like about it. I like the height, I like the size, but I my brother has a bandsaw mill, and one of our friends had a big maple tree fall down. So my brother came over from Montana and milled up these amazing maple slabs for me for free. So there's three. Those are 4-inch boards there, slabs. The first thing I did is I took them, cut them down to about length. I'm cutting them down to about 7-foot lengths here. And my saw doesn't go all the way through, so I just had to finish it here to get the rest all the way through these. And then went down to Lowe's or Home Depot and got their straightest crooked 2x4, and I drilled it into the side, and then I would run it through on one side of my table saw because I don't have a jointer. So I run it through on one side, flip the board over, and run it through on this side to try to get me one side that I could use as a reference. Now I'm not gonna laminate these. I want to have a solid top. So 2 boards that are about 12 inches wide that are going to be my solid top workbench instead of cutting it down into strips, gluing it all back together. So I'm going to give this a try. I don't know if maybe a year from now I'm going to have to go back and reflatten everything or not. And I've never ever built anything this big. So a lot of these pieces are just the scope of this really took me by surprise. So you can kind of see that I'm getting these pieces taken down. Now here I'm starting working on the legs. I did the same thing. I screwed this straight-ish 2x4 down. Would run it through on one side. Now my saw blade wouldn't go all the way up high enough. So I run it through, and then here you can see how we then flip this board over. And then we can get a reference side to start making the legs. And then I got a straightish side on over there that I can then run the legs through. So a lot of the inspiration from this are the Wood Whisperer just recently did a thing where he started a brand new workbench that is going to be, he's selling his Roubo bench and using this new one that has different vices on it. And so I actually bought the plans for that. They had a sale going for them. I think that was like $30 for the sale plans. And there was a lot of ideas in there that I took that, but I definitely did not follow the plans very good. I changed everything. I had an idea what I wanted. So a lot of this stuff is all changed. So that one was definitely one of the things. Also, Matt Cremona has been doing these solid slab tops, but he's also making sure that they're all quarter sawn. He's getting these great big huge trees. This isn't going to be quarter sawn, which I know is going to leave for some movement, which I'm probably gonna have to deal with later on. But I think since since the boards are all 4 inches thick, I think that I can kind of deal with that later on and get them done. Now, this first video, I went through all of them, and I had about 6 hours of video time in. And you think that, well, all the times that you didn't bother to start the camera, which was easily doubling that. So there's a lot of hours into making this workbench. So I don't know how many videos I'm gonna actually do, but this first one is just getting the legs and the top kind of milled up and getting everything going and getting the legs into the top. And so right now I'm just taking the legs over and I'm just running through the planer. Luckily, my planer could handle these. And I got 4 legs, all about the same. There is some flaws in these. There's some cracking going on, some knots in some weird places. But this right here was a lifesaver. I knew with the figure that's in these boards, I didn't want to try to use a hand planer. And these were too wide to run through my hand planer, or through my other planer, my tabletop planer. So I went online and I found a woodworker here local, and I just asked him, hey, what are you doing to flatten your slabs? Because I have this amazing machine. And he charged $90 an hour. And which was really cool is his kid actually goes to the school where I teach. So he ended up hooking me up and took good care of me here. But this is just a giant router sled. This thing has a bit on it that's about 6 inches wide. And he took a lot of passes, just taking off, a 1/16 of an inch at a time or so, and would get it all down to a certain, run it all the way across, and then take it down a little bit until these ones were totally flat. And then after these got totally flat on this side, then you flip it and you do it on the other side. And it saved so much time to have these two, at least both of these pieces being the same thickness as each other, so that I could start without having to do a whole bunch of flattening on these two pieces anyways. And otherwise I would have had to cut them down to at least to 12 inches wide, which I really didn't want to. I think they're about 14 and a half now. So I'm still keeping the width that I wanted on this without sacrificing that. Now on this one that it's running through right now, you do see the checking on here. And there are some cracks, but that's all part of this. With the drawing process, I actually went and marked where the cracks were to make sure that they weren't spreading after this sat in my garage for a little bit. And then I ended up adding some bow ties, but that'll be in a future video. Here I'm just making the legs the exact same length, and what I did is I just put a stop down on the end. And since my saw couldn't cut all the way through, then I put the stop, push it all the way over, and cut it off. And I would have a pretty good reference point for those. Some of the grain in these pieces are just amazing. And even those little knots like that, I think that that's a beauty. I think that's something that you want to add. And I know that it may cause trouble later on with some bowing or something, but I'll deal with it later on when I get to it, I guess. Then after I got the one square side, then I'm only running these through about 1 inch high. And this is going to be my tenon. Push it back up against the block. Run it through on my sled. And I'm going 1 inch all the way around, I believe. And then once I have them all cut, then I just took them over to a bandsaw, set this at 1 inch, and I could cut on this side. This way I didn't have to reset my fence each time I did it. And then I could just turn it this way since I cut in an inch on this side. And then have my tenon piece for my leg. So I did some measuring. I had actually planned on using a different vise, but it didn't end up working because it was too wide. So it would have actually spanned the gap, and with the wood movement in here, I wasn't really the split in the split top Roubo. So I thought I don't want it to span this, so it ended up changing a little bit, but I'm really happy with the final outcome. But here I'm just setting where I'm going to put my tenon and trying to make sure that my legs in here are square, sitting up straight. These boards were pretty tough, but it was nice having the Harbor Freight Workbench worked great for holding everything. And then I was labeling everything here. This is A, and then I went ahead and I put, I'm going to drill in. I went in about 2.5 inches to 3 inches, I think, to make sure that I had deep enough mortise. So I just went in a little bit at the first time, just making sure that I kind of had it square. Chiseled it out, and then the next time I went in later on with the drill and drilled it out a bunch more, and then took the chisel back to it. So again, this is the first time that I'm doing anything this magnitude. I've made small boxes before, but I know how much these slabs are actually worth. I know that they're free to me, but these are pretty expensive. You can see the figure in this maple, how amazing it is. And I know that if I was going to go and try to buy these, it would definitely cost me a lot of money. So I really didn't want to ruin them. So I was being super careful on everything that I did, trying my best not to totally ruin this project. So then I just went as close as I can to the line, slowly getting this that the legs could fit into the tenon, and the mortise would have a pretty good grip in here, not being too wide. Now, these boards did shrink a little bit. They had some moisture in them still. So later on I did add like a thin piece of wood. They had a really tight grip here, but then one of them, like the grip changed a little bit. So I added like a little piece of thin plywood in here, trying to get them to be tighter. And this was a pretty awesome moment here to finally have all 4 legs in, and now I'm just getting ready to get an idea about the stretchers. But this point right here, when I had all 4 legs onto the top with the split top into the Roubo, and you can see where how beautiful this is going to be. And it still has some burn marks from the tooling that I had done. But ready to move on to installing the leg vise and adding the stretchers.